So the next thing is a study I did for blackstone minerals. And I don't know how many are familiar with the 𝗍𝗶𝗿 Wells field in Polk County, Texas, but very famous field in the Woodbine. And it was discovered back in the 80s and early 90s. And the main landowner, mineral owner in that area, made so darn much money off the production, he started Blackstone Minerals and then started buying minerals. So that's how Blackstone got started. But they wanted me to do a study to see if there was anything left in the field that they could go drill. I think it's produced about 700 BCF of gas and 35 or 40 million barrels of oil at this point or more. So I went in, and it's pretty good data. It's not bad. We're talking about Woodbine, which is just below the Austin Chalk in this area, and we're looking at sand deposition that's an angular unconformity. So at the base, all these sands terminate at the base of the Austin Chalk. And the production varies. It's all over the place, but generally from west to east, the production is poor, gets better, and is best. This is an example of the south to north arbitrary line and some of the production from some of the wells in there. And then this is a west to east arbitrary line. And you can kind of see the sands come up and terminate against the base of the Austin Chalk. Here's what it is in Paradise. Here's my recipe that I used. I found that there's 5 attributes that consistently come up in PCA. And that's Hilbert, envelope, instantaneous frequency, instantaneous phase, and relative acoustic impedance. Thin bed is redundant to some degree to instantaneous frequency because you have to use instantaneous frequency to create thin bed, but I threw it in there anyway. And of course, I always add sweetness just because sweetness is important in certain areas, in clastics for sure. But again, you can see the key neurons that are at the perforations in this. And the key neurons, now the yellow neuron is where you start getting some really nice production. And you can see at the top, I think my best well in there was 33 BCF and 1.8 million barrels of oil. So we want to find those guys, right? There's one well that had 100 or almost 300 feet in the yellow neuron, but it went across the fault and was structurally low and didn't produce very well. But you can map these things out, and you can bring them in and extrapolate them along the well curves and start making some good correlations on good wells versus better wells versus poor wells. Both cross sections I did that, and of course there's the one that went across the fault and had beautiful sand but not productive all the way. But here's the breakdown. When you're looking at the map of what neurons have actually produced, my guide here is P stands for poor. I have fair, I have good, great, and excellent, and they're all about 5 BCF. The poor ones are less than 5 BCF. The excellent is the one well that's above 30 BCF. And you can see there's a very good demarcation between kind of the bluish and purple colors versus the greens, dark blues, and yellows. But when you go into low probability, all that goes away because this field had been produced long before they shot the 3D. What's critical about being able to see depletion is that, of course, when you shoot a 3D, you freeze the rock properties at that point in time. So anything that's drilled afterwards is probably safe. If you're trying to key off wells, that were drilled before the 3D was shot, then you gotta have to understand where the depletion is. So I'm going to go back. Here's with all of the 100% of the data points for each of those neurons that I've circled up there for the good, great, and poor wells. And here's what it looks like when you go down to 10%. Now, there are some areas left, and I've circled a few of them that I want to go in and look at, but I went in and looked at one particular area which had the best neurons in it, the yellows and the blues, which relate to the well that made 33 BCF and almost 2 million barrels of oil. And using a field average for net to gross ratio and porosity and water saturation, and velocity, I was able to come up with a calculation and looked at the field-wide production. And the field-wide production is 2,000 MCF per acre foot and 54 barrels of oil per million cubic feet, and used that for this geobodies and got a well that would be somewhere close to about 20.5 BCF and 1.1 million barrels of oil. So I could use the geobodies and the low probability to find places that hadn't been drilled, could see the depletion, and then give them estimated reserves on where I thought they could go in and use this to find someone to come in and drill a well for them. And so my conclusions is, you can get down to the gnats when it comes to creating the geobodies once you understand where the reservoir is and calculating reserves. And this is something that the engineers found fascinating. I said, eventually we're going to get the SEC to change the rules on using seismic for calculation of reserves with machine learning. And then using a low probability volume in areas where you've had production established long before the 3D was shot, then you can use the low probability to help you understand what's been depleted. Now, this is also good for companies now who have big fields offshore and who are doing 4D seismic, because they're shooting 4D seismic every 6 months or once a year. They're reprocessing it. Using this kind of operation would help them understand the dynamics of the depletion in their fields.